Double, double, toil and trouble. Some topics discussed may make people uncomfortable. For fair is foul and foul is fair. On this podcast, we will definitely swear. A lot. Now round the cauldron go, trigger warnings listed in the notes below. Thrice and once the hedge pig whined, the cocktails cry, it's time, it's time.
By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes. Maiden, mother, crone. Plot twist, we're all the crone. The stories aren't all made up and the points don't matter.
Welcome listeners to The Weird Sisters, a podcast about the blurst and bizarre and all the things you are happier not knowing about. I am your sun, moon, and rising sign, and your birth chart says, you're fucked. Tay!
I am a bejeweled sex toy, Laura.
And I am 4 really horrible ways to die, Lacey.
I looked up my sun, moon, and rising sign last night with JD.
So did I.
I don't know the exact time of my birth, but he was like, it's so me! It was perfectly me! So I was like, alright, I'll do mine.
Yeah.
And I looked it up, and my birth certificate does not say the exact time I was born, but my mum thinks it might be sometime between 3 and 4 a.m.
Oof.
And we're reading it, and he was just like, this sounds really nasty. All of this makes you sound terrible. I'm like, it's accurate.
It's perfectly fine.
Yeah, it was horrible. Usually there's like a mix of good and bad. Mine was all like, you're cruel, you're cold, but you make people think that you're really nice and warm. You're not popular.
Jesus.
Nobody really likes you. You will be miserable in love all of your life. Don't get married young. If you do get married when you're older, don't have kids because you'll be a terrible parent. I was like, oh, okay.
Perfect. I looked up mine because my dad knew the time I was born. So I was born at 4:40 in the afternoon. Oh, yeah, really convenient baby. In the afternoon, Mum got a good sleep after. Really nice.
That's beautiful.
And I was like, okay, Pisces, Taurus, Virgo, or whatever the fuck it is. But I didn't look up or bother to read what that actually meant.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll have to do that.
Well,
but
Yeah.
I tried. Look, I did all the work, and then I was like, no, there's like pages of stuff.
All the work with none of the payoff. That's the best part. Maybe it's just me because I'm super vain, but I'm like, yes, what does this large document say about me? Because I got my birth chart wrong. So for ages I thought I was, because I'm a Libra sun, I'm a Gemini moon, and I thought I was a Sagittarius rising. But apparently I wasn't born at 8:30 in the morning. It was the evening, or it's the other way around, because I'm actually Libra sun, Gemini moon, Taurus rising. And I used to think it was really cool that I was 2 airs and a fire sign, but now I'm 2 airs and an earth sign, which makes a lot more sense as someone who is very indulgent and likes to just be at home, because that are things that Tauruses like to do. So I can see why that's
I know nothing about that thing. I know nothing about it at all, but I do know that now I am a sun Virgo, a moon Aries, I think it is, and then a rising Cancer, and it all means I'm a terrible fucking person. I am a Cancer. I don't even need to be emerging, I just am.
Cancers as a sign are very good, though. I think that that's one of the better, in terms of like Instagram culture around star signs, which is where I get all of my zodiac info.
Love it.
It's Cancers are supposed to be like one of the top tier signs, apparently.
JD has been very upset because he keeps seeing stuff about how Libra men suck. Like, everyone hates Libra men suddenly, and he's like, I'm a Libra man.
Nah.
It's very sad for him.
I'm biased. All Libras are good. We're very good. We're very indulgent, and we're all about balance, and we're all about balancing indulgence and everything else, which means that the indulgent side of the scale is always all the way down, and everything else is all the way up, because treat yourself. Anyway, speaking of star signs and star charts.
Oh, yes.
Ooh.
I have a story for you.
Yes, please.
It's all centered around the theme of this week, which is odd and unusual murder weapons. So, I've gone over everyone's star sign.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And we know that there are certain flaws and connotations that come with being a Libra man or a Cancer rising. But would you commit murder because of it?
Yes. Definitely.
No, I would not.
Well, Florida man did.
Yes, Florida man.
Oh,
yes, Florida
of
man.
course. Okay, so
We've
Lacey is
got-
Florida man.
We've
Florida
got a Florida man. So the Florida man of this week's name is Darius Johnson, and he was living with his girlfriend Monica Gooden in Lauderhill, Florida. So young couple. He's 22, she's 20. He's working like fast food. He's a manager. She's putting herself through uni,
Nice.
getting a teaching degree. She's babysitting, doing all the good stuff.
Yep.
2 kids, living life. So in 2011, 2 years prior to when this story took place, which is 2013, so they're about 18 and 20, the couple falls
God,
pregnant.
they're so young.
Yeah, right? So the couple falls pregnant, and they have a baby boy, who they very sadly lost after a month. His name was DJ, which is Darius Jr. after his father. So after that, he said that the couple had like a super rocky relationship, and they fought pretty often, which is not great, but as life goes on.
Can be expected,
Yeah.
can't it?
No,
Yeah,
definitely.
it's a traumatic experience.
100%. Especially after like the child is born. They didn't just lose it. They did all the work
Yeah.
and then he passed away. Awful. Okay. So it's Easter weekend and the police stopped Darius on Northwest 55th Avenue, which is where he lives.
Cool.
He's injured and he's bleeding. He's a little bit wobbly on his feet. So the police bring him in because he's a bleeding man on the street. They provide him medical treatment, assuming maybe he's just a larrikin having too much fun on the long weekend, right? Been there, done that. Well, there was also an alleged robbery in the area and the police wanted to know what was up because there's a bleeding man walking the streets. Is this a thing?
Yeah.
So, while getting seen to, it is discovered that Darius has several minor stab wounds. Ding! So this may be a suspect in our robbery case. Who'd have thunk? So the police questioned Darius further as he's being treated, like cleaning him up, stitching him up, and they're like, hey, what's going on, mate? And he says, I had a fight with my girlfriend. Quote, she's in heaven, I think I've killed her.
That sounds bad.
Yeah, so that's a direct quote. So the police investigate the couple's home. And at 5 p.m. on Easter Sunday, Monica Gooden's body is found. So officers followed a trail of blood from the living room to the bedroom, and she was violently beaten. And and by her side was a broken, bloodied Xbox 360 console.
Oh.
What?
Fuck, that would have
Yes.
taken so long.
Yeah. So police also discovered multiple stab wounds to her neck, back, chin, and stomach. But her body was completely beaten to a pulp with this 360 controller and the console. And the whole thing was like super broken. So like he's just gone to absolute town. Little side note, I was going through my research with Tim last night and he said, well, I guess that brings a whole new meaning to the Red Ring of Death. And I had a good chuckle about that one.
Go away, Tim. No.
I liked it. Bloody simp.
It is funny. It is funny.
Did
you just call yourself a simp?
I did. I liked
God.
it. So poor Monica. Back to poor Monica and her stabbed chin and stomach and bloodied head. Her time of death was 6 a.m. that Sunday. And
What time was he found?
Around 5 p.m.
Ooh.
Yes, so like late in the day. Monica did not have any defense wounds to her hands or front. So he's come at her from behind and she's gone down before she can really have a chance to fight back, which is dirty, mate. That is foul play.
I mean, none of this is good.
No.
But that's particularly bad.
Yeah. So Darius is placed under arrest and questioning begins. He said that he said that she wouldn't die and that killing her was, to quote, like fighting a dragon.
No.
And that he felt like a man after he'd finished murdering her.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't like it.
No.
Not great. No. So this is where it starts to get weird. This is where I decided this is going to be my story. First, I saw Xbox 360 as a murder weapon, and I'm like, yes. And then I saw this part, and I was like, tick, chef's kiss. It's going in the pod. So Darius claimed that his spirit is being controlled by Monica. And the only way for them to be free was for him to sacrifice someone born under the Taurus zodiac.
Ooh.
Oh.
He supposedly spent hours thinking about who he would kill.
Hours.
Hours. So he's sitting there and he's stewing over it, and he's like, who should I
scrolling through Facebook, seeing who's a Taurus.
Like, when were you born?
Exactly. Like, his family say he had no prior history of violence or crime.
That they know of.
So, like, yeah, that they know of. So it's kind of like, well, where did this premeditation come from?
I feel like if you have siblings, then immediately you have a prehistory of violence and crime, because the shit that I've talked about this before, but the shit that I have enacted and my siblings have enacted upon me, and the things I witnessed at my friend's house, it's not like I'm particularly bloodthirsty as a child or now. Yeah, you hurt each other. It's just what you do. JD used to wrestle his little siblings, and they're significantly younger than him. He used to throw them in shit.
Yeah, throw them.
Just toss them around.
Yeah.
Mitch
They
and
just bounce.
You can't hurt kids. They're fucking invulnerable.
That's what happens to children.
Kids
They
do
have
bounce, though.
The rubber bone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mitch and
'Cause
his
they
brother
fall
used to
over.
play.
Bounce like so hard off the wall.
Yeah.
Mitch
'Cause,
and
like,
his
kids
brother
fall over.
used to throw darts at each other.
Oh, fuck. Actually, who did that? I think my mum and her siblings did that. Someone threw a dart and it got them in the forehead.
Oof.
Which,
My
as being a child in
siblings
the
and I-
70s, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
It's not even enough blood to go to the doctor.
No.
I don't know if I've mentioned this before on the pod, but my sister has a very large metal screw in her foot because of a fight that we had when we were kids, and I have a huge scar down my throat as a result of it as well.
Cyborg. There's a little bit of metal in her.
There's a little bit of metal in her. Cyberpunk 2020. My sister is way ahead of everyone. Yeah, it's just... if you have siblings and you weren't violent towards them, that indicates to me even more that you're probably a serial killer.
What were you violent towards if not your siblings?
Exactly. Small animals lighting fires.
The new Halloween reboot.
I need to see it.
Exactly.
Yes. So, like, we have no prior history of violence that we know of. And then we jump to the burglary suspicions that happened earlier. So they turned out to be true. So but it wasn't for a burglary, but it was still a break-and-enter.
Yeah.
So after killing Monica, Darius then broke into another woman's house. Her name was Geraldine Price. It was a condo, right near his apartment. And he repeatedly beat her in the face and body. She survived. She's alive.
Because she didn't have an Xbox console in her house?
Yeah. So yeah, his prior weapon was broken. He had a weapon degradation, so he lost it.
God.
But Geraldine's nephew, who's named Gerald Curtis, saw the attack and he was like, no. So this is a quote from him. I tore open my blinds and I see this guy jumping on my auntie, just throwing her everywhere and punching her and hitting her with a chair. Oh. And as he got closer, I just went stabbing at him to back him off and to slow him down, but he just kept coming, so I just kept going and going. So this is where Darius's stab wounds have come from.
Yeah.
Because
she had no defensive wounds and didn't even know what had happened. Poor Monica.
And King Gerald comes through with his fucking...
King Gerald.
Yeah.
Yep.
Stab.
Love.
So, yeah. So after that, he calls the police, but Darius legs it, which brings us back to the start, when we find him wandering the streets. So when questioned... about all of this, Darius rambled on about astrology and American Idol and sports.
Okay.
He said that he had considered sacrificing his grandfather, among many other family members, but decided against it as his grandfather was too old and sickly and wouldn't have made a good sacrifice.
Oh, okay.
You have to kill the person that has your heart the most, he said, but I couldn't kill my mum. Which is it sweet? No. It's
I don't know what it is.
What is it?
It's not that. It's not sweet.
No.
Whatever it is.
Is it meth, though? Is it meth?
I don't know. There was no... So I read a bunch of very Florida Man-esque articles about this from various Florida news sites, and there was no mention of drugs or alcohol involved in any of those articles. So who knows? Price also claimed that Darius had been rambling about a pink elephant as he beat her.
What the fuck?
So there's some kind of something going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then some quotes from Darius after the fact that this all happened. I had to go through with this in order for me to be the person who I am. I am Satan. But nobody said Satan was bad.
Yeah, they did.
Son,
They did.
there are plenty people who disagree with you there. Maybe not the three sisters.
It's like a whole book on it.
Yeah, maybe not us. But
Yes.
yeah.
We've read Memnoch the Devil.
We have read Memnoch to the Devil.
What's up, LaVey? Yeah. But at the end of all of this, which is the real kicker, it just is just the ribbon and bow on top of the whole package that is this fucking shit show. Monica Gooden was not born under the Taurus zodiac.
Oh,
She wasn't even a Taurus.
what the fuck? Well, that's why it didn't work. That's
Yeah.
why it's not, actually Satan.
Yeah, he fucked up.
Essentially.
Maybe she protected us. Maybe she told him she was Taurus, knowing his terrible deed. No, that's. I'm sad. I'm really sad.
Or it just shows that he was a shitty boyfriend that didn't even know his fucking girlfriend's zodiac.
I bet that was it.
Yeah.
I bet he's just like, oh yeah, she's October 22nd. She's like, no,
Honey.
but okay.
Yeah. At the end of all of this, Darius has been sentenced to life in prison. As far as I know, he's
Good.
still in prison. Still,
Are you sure?
Nice.
'Cause
who knows?
fuck, that doesn't ever mean anything anymore from
No.
what I've been reading.
No. Yeah. We'll hope he's still there. Just because I've got Taurus in my zodiac now. I don't want.
Don't want him
I'm
out.
a Taurus rising. I don't want to. No, thank you.
He'll try again.
He will. He's back at it again. The Zodiac slasher. No, I shouldn't jest, but it's a little bit silly, isn't it?
It's fucking insane.
It is insane. It's buck wild, and that is why it's on our list. Sources. Short and sweet one for you today, my friends. We've got Sun Sentinel. We have NBC Miami, Huffington Post, and Complex.com. And that is the story of Darius Johnson, the man who killed his girlfriend with an Xbox 360.
What the fuck?
I know.
Well,
Oh,
great.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. That's really sad.
Yeah.
Thank you for your story, though.
Oh, you're welcome. I had a lot
was
of
a good
fun
time.
retelling it.
A murder weapon is definitely, as far as murder weapons go, plastic and, a little bit of wiring seems innocuous enough that I wouldn't have expected it. So good job.
Mm-hmm.
I have a story for you.
Please.
Yes.
A little bit more intimidating than an Xbox 360. But I do want to put out a wee little
No,
warning, which
Laura,
seems
what
to
have you
happen a lot
done?
with my stories. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
It's not. This time, it's just because there is some hate speech that is used, that is necessary for me to tell the story.
Okay.
So I want to make sure that anyone who might not want to hear some derogatory language, I will give you a note before I say it, just because it only sort of pops up the once that I have to say it, and then I can just refer to it for the rest of the story. But just in case anyone didn't want to hear some hate speech towards homosexual people, I will let you know.
Cool.
So cool. I decided to do a certain gentleman called Ramon, but we'll get to him in a minute, and I will set the scene for you.
Wonderful.
So it's 8:30 a.m. on October 31st.
Yes.
In 1968. I knew you would like that.
Spooky, scary skeleton.
Spooky time.
Yep.
Well, Edward Weaver had a fucking terrible morning that Halloween because he is a business manager for Ramon, and he lets himself into the house of aging actor Ramon Novarro in his Laurel Canyon home, and he instantly is concerned. His employer's home is a complete wreck. The furniture has been overturned. There are pictures ripped from the walls and bloodstains on the floor.
Isaac, pause. Ramon Novarro, as in the black and white classic movie star?
Yes.
Oh.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
Okay, yep, carry on.
this, like, some people might know about this, but I had never heard of this before. So I was really excited to, like, come across this because it's intense.
I've seen his movies, I don't know his life. Carry on.
Oh, really? Oh, his movies are wonderful as well. And we will talk about some of them, but very briefly. So, bloodstains on the floor, house is fucked. In the bedroom, he finds Ramon and he finds his nude body. He is unfortunately been brutally murdered. He's been bludgeoned and tortured with a memento from one of his films, a cane. But also another item, which we will get to in a minute, for our unusual murder weapon. His face and torso are especially beaten. The blood has dried, so the killing has happened hours before he was found. He has no known enemies, and the house has not been broken into. There's no sign that anything has actually been, like, smashed or forced open. He apparently allowed his killers into the house. The bathroom mirror, and this is the point where I will be using a certain term that no one wants to really hear. But basically, the bathroom mirror had words written upon it in a brown eyebrow pencil or grease pencil, and it said in capital letters, "Us girls are better than faggots."
Right.
Sorry, I hate using that word. It's horrible. But there you go. So there's also on the bed written in ink the name Larry, and that is directly next to Ramon's body. So the autopsy found that... Autopsy? I don't know how to say that word anymore for some reason. I've said it so many times. It found that Ramon had died of asphyxiation, but he had not been choked to death manually. He had choked to death on his own blood after a jeweled lead dildo had been shoved down his throat. Yeah.
You don't want dildos that have lead or
alleged.
jewels on them.
Yeah.
No, you don't want either.
You don't want either of those on a
but
dildo.
This is alleged.
Okay.
So I saw this, like, pop up a lot, and this is what obviously initially got me onto the case. And I really wanted to talk about it after I found it, but it is not confirmed that he had been beaten or killed in any way with this jeweled lead dildo, but it comes up a shitload, and this is in the late 60s, and people were fucking weird about sex toys, about sex, about anything to do with gay culture as well. So, like, maybe it was like this, maybe it wasn't. The police have refused to speculate on the murder weapon.
Prudes.
But, yeah, exactly. There you go. So at the scene, bloody clothing was found. There was a man's denim shirt, some pants, and some underwear that had been discarded on a neighbour's fence about 40 yards from the home. At the time of his death, Ramon was 69 years old. So, let's talk about who he was, because I think he is wonderful. I've seen some of his films before and not really realised who he was. But he was born Jose Ramon Gil Samaniego, and he was one of the really great... I know, it's a wonderful name. It's really nice. Rolls off the tongue. But he was one of the early great film stars, and, like, one of the very few that actually managed to transition from silent film to talkies and still remained, like, famous and liked and really well loved. So he was a Mexican-American film star, and he also acted in television. He was born at the turn of the century in 1899 in Durango City in Mexico. His family moved to Los Angeles basically to escape the Mexican revolution. Yep. It was not a resolution. It was a fucking revolution. And that happened in 1913. He was around about, like, 11 years old when they decided to bail on that. His family is actually really famous. They're very high status and influential. There's a lot of actors, doctors, and landowners that are very famous from around that time, and then before and after his sort of, like, generation. And on his mother's side, supposedly, he was descended from a Prince of Montezuma, which were rulers of the Aztec Empire. So, very, very handsome man, very famous man. He became a massive star and was, like, a leading man in cinema in the 20s and 30s. So basically the way that he became really famous I thought was interesting, because I've been studying film lately, and, like, there's a lot of shady shit that's happened in film over the years. When film companies first sort of, like, started making movies way back in the silent era and all the way through to, like, much later, when a star, like, when a actor signed on to a company, they could only make films with that company. They couldn't work for anyone else, and the contracts were around about 4 to 7 years in general. Some were longer, some were shorter. So at the time, the company that like became Paramount Pictures had Rudolph Valentino, super famous sex symbol, and he was like the OG Latin lover. Yeah, and that's like a super popular archetype that's actually like still around today. Like Antonio Banderas is like a modern version of the Latin lover, but like Frank Sinatra. I know, exactly. Everyone loves Puss in Boots. But like Frank Sinatra was one in his music and in his movie careers. So was Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, John Travolta. Like they're all, and like Enrique Iglesias. They're all like versions of this archetype that sort of permeated our popular culture. And Ramon was one of the very early ones, and he only really, like, he would have, because of how good an actor he was, probably got into film anyway, but he was promoted as the opposition to Paramount Pictures' Latin lover, Rudolph Valentino. He then was MGM's version of the Latin lover, and was promoted as, like, a rival to him. So it became a sex symbol after his 1925 Ben-Hur film, which was really famous.
Oh, yeah.
Because he had a very... Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he had a very revealing costume.
He did indeed.
That, like, people got
indeed.
Fucking wild about. Like, you look at it now and you're like, oh, okay, I've seen Thor in, like, Speedos, so it's fine. But, like, back then it was a big thing.
Really sexy. Really risque. Real sexy.
El Scandalo.
Yeah. Yeah, that movie has, like, a lot of bloodshed and shit, so people were excited about it. So he tended to, like, play a lot of swashbuckler roles, like, just good action. He was very good singer as well, so he played a lot of, like, musicals and things like that. It's really funny, I thought this was cute trivia. At the time, like, in Hollywood, because this is, like, 1917, sort of, when his film career started, so very early cinema days, there was a physical therapist called Madame Sylvia, or Sylvia of Hollywood. And she was like a physical therapist for all of the stars. She basically kept them camera ready with like massage and particular diet and exercise techniques, which is basically just like move and eat well. Yeah. But she published a tell-all book that was like, when I worked for Ramon Novarro, he slept in a coffin. It's not fucking true, but I thought that was great.
I love
of
that.
all the things for people to be like, yeah, that sounds like, you know,
well, it keeps you sleeping on your back. So that's good for, like, wrinkles and stuff. I feel him. Yeah.
Bella Lugosi who? Really? Oh, my God.
Now I kind of want to
I want a coffin, but Mitch says no.
Mitch. Help your sister out. Get Lacey a coffin.
Let us have the coffin.
And then he can just bury me in it when I'm done or whatever. So...
Write in.
Write
petition. Get Lacey a coffin. Get the Weird Sisters coffin.
Get Lacey a coffin.
Yes.
Give us one. I want one. I just want one next to the coffee table.
Yeah, exactly.
I've always wanted
I've seen a lot of very bougie goth households that have them. And I do like them. I think they're cool.
My idiot 13-year-old ass, ever since seeing Interview with the Vampire, when Tom Cruise kicks the coffee table lid open and it's a coffin and puts the poor sex
It's your
worker
coffin!
Yeah. Am I dead? I need a priest. It's like, oh. Like that's been my, like, idiot, dumb goth child dreams for, like, close to 13 years now. So thank you very much. I
love that. You've just given me a very strong flashback of my friend Kate and I, who used to quote all the time of it's a coffin! It's your coffin, my dear! I love it. Oh, amazing. What a film.
Anyway, sorry.
Anyway, so, Ramon was in many, many famous films, like Mata Hari, Ben-Hur, we've already talked about, Across to Singapore, Devil May Care, The Pagan. Those are some of the bigger ones that people may know. But he had, like, a huge, huge filmography, so he was also in Bonanza. Like, he was on heaps of shit. He was also, though, a closeted gay man. So he was troubled by this all his life. He had a super Roman Catholic upbringing, and he continued to hold those beliefs. So he struggled, like, with whether or not he was okay. Like, it was a very, very sad thing when you look at, like, a lot of the what are they called? Autobiographies? No, wait, biographies, because he didn't write them himself. They, like, talk a lot of people that he was close with. He had a very, like, troubled existence in relation to his sexuality. He also, because of it, had a lifelong struggle with alcoholism. Supposedly, MGM tried to coerce him into a lavender marriage, which, if you haven't heard of that term before, is basically where mixed-sex marriage between different gender people for the sake of appearances, usually obviously between people who are homosexual, just so it, like, looks as though you're not, because that's not okay. It was illegal in a lot of states until, like, the 70s. And even in Queensland now, like, there's been recent uproar about the fact that, like, if you're a straight male and you could use a defense, it's something that still was in, like, the legal lexicon, that a homosexual man had tried to come onto you and you killed him in defense because you were so offended by it. Like, that's something that legally can be used as a defense in Queensland up until recently, which is messed up.
Our country is broken in so many ways.
Lots of them are. But yeah, that's fucked up. So yeah, basically he refused to go into a lavender marriage, but like there's heaps and heaps of stars at the time who were in them. He had many romantic relationships with famous men in Hollywood, including Rudolph Valentino.
Yes.
So the man that he was the rival for.
Which is cute.
Oh, that's
Rudolph was
Rivals to Lovers is such a
so
good trope.
I know. Thank you, fanfiction.
Blew out my mic levels. I'm sorry.
I know, me too. Very excited about it. Yeah, Rudolph was bisexual, apparently. He died very young. He died at like 31, and it fucked people up. He's like one of the first instances of people like going crazy and killing themselves because a celebrity had died. So that was interesting. But anyway, allegedly, the dual dildo that became Ramon's supposed murder weapon was given to him by Valentino.
Aw.
I know. Sad. Sexy. Weird. Anyway, so Ramon had been really clever financially. Like, a lot of stars at the time, like, it's a big thing whenever you look back at a lot of these stars, is they end up financially ruined because the lifestyle was horrifying, probably still is. But he had done quite well. So he owned a few houses. He'd invested in real estate. And he actually had, like, this incredible home in Los Feliz. Like, I've looked up pictures because it's so insanely beautiful. Which basically, like, his business manager in 1928 had been caught embezzling his money and building himself an absolute dream home. Like, it's all white, and then it's like, and this is in like Los Angeles, so where it's hot all the time. So it's an all white house, all like sharp edges, and then it's got like jewel jade tiling all over it. Ooh. And it's gorgeous. Like, it's surrounded by a jungle of plants. It just looks beautiful. You can actually look at pictures of it online now because someone's recently like remodeled it and made it even more modern. But yeah, so he had like this absolutely beautiful home. That's not the one he was killed in, but just an example of like how well he was doing for himself. So he took that house, like old mate's dream home, when the theft was discovered. He was like, don't worry about the money, just give me that house. And then he continued to work in television throughout the 50s and 60s. So he hadn't just disappeared and faded into obscurity. He was still someone who was like relatively known, even as time sort of moved on. So naturally, when he turned up dead, people and the police, other people as well, but whatever, the police looked into money as a motive. It was really high profile, so like a lot of teams were assigned to it, plus additional resources, and they did eventually make his autopsy public, which showed that he had been bound with an electrical cord, and he had been unable to free himself, which was awful. His nose, lips and mouth were all severely lacerated, which caused massive bleeding and is what eventually choked him. The newspaper didn't report on the message on the mirror. It did report the name on the bed, and then the ligature marks that he was still bound when they found him, but the ligature marks showed that it seemed really unlikely he wrote the message himself after the attack began. Why would he write it beforehand, you know? And why would the murderer leave it there? And obviously, how the hell would he do this to himself?
Yeah.
Like, so it didn't seem like suicide. So they assumed that the messages were the work of the culprit. Ramon was still closeted at the time of his death, but it was like an open secret. Yeah. Like a lot of circles knew about it, but it was still like laws against sodomy in his state actually made a homosexual relationship illegal, and that wasn't overturned until like the 70s. So he was noted as a lifelong bachelor in the newspaper, which is a term that was often used for gay men at the time for people in the know. Yeah, so horrible death. Nobody really seemed to know why it had happened because the only thing they could say was like money must have been a motivator. But if that's the case, then why didn't they take this bejeweled dildo that
100%.
they used to murder him? So I assume like it either didn't exist or like money wasn't a motivator. Like it's one of those two things. So within days of the murder, though, 2 men were arrested: brothers Paul, who was 22, and Tom, who was 17, and surnamed Ferguson. So police refused to give further details. They just said that they had physical evidence that linked the 2 brothers to Ramon's death. They were arrested in November, and a month later, Paul attempted to gouge out his own eyes while in jail.
Right.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. He didn't succeed,
Okay,
which
well-
I guess is something that happens when you try to gouge your own eyes out, because that fucking would hurt.
No, please. I would not do that.
Yeah, right? Ugh. Go on a hunger strike or something. I don't know. But he initially said he was attacked, and they later proved, like, he definitely fucking did this to himself. He did not get attacked. They assumed that he was trying to, like, garner sympathy. But in court, the whole story came out and no one gave a shit. So basically, in court, the story that came out was Paul and Tom had called Ramon and offered him sexual services. Paul, the older of the 2, was a nude model, and he maybe acted in some pornographic movies. Like, I found some details that he might have, maybe not, unsure. So apparently Ramon didn't know about Paul's work in, like, film or in the seedier side of the business, but he had hired sex workers to come to his home before, and supposedly that was how Paul got his number, from a previous sex worker who'd been to the house. Some sources do claim that Paul had actually been seeing Ramon for some weeks and they had had a sexual relationship for some time, but unknown. But his brother, like Tom, the younger one, 17, had previously not met Ramon before this day. So they hitchhiked to his house from the Midwest, and yeah, I know. Like,
It's a long way to get some D, though.
Yeah.
Right? So Ramon, like, offers them drinks, they drunk, they talk for a while. Then they decided to try and steal from Ramon. Apparently they decided this before they arrived. The plan was to get him drunk and then frighten him into giving them the location of this supposed amount of cash that he had on the property. Apparently they thought he had like $5,000 stashed behind a portrait somewhere in the house or a picture of some sort. Yeah.
Okay.
Very old
I mean,
school
like,
to squirrel money away behind
exactly.
shit like that. It's very like old school crime novel.
Yeah.
It also just reminds me of me, like, back in the day when I'd hide my bond underneath my mattress. Stupid shit that poor people do. You know,
100%.
like, oh, this will be safe. And then I'm like, that's not fucking safe, idiot.
Yeah. Forgetting where you've put it feels worse than something happening to it. It's like, no, it's there. You're just an idiot. You don't remember where you've put it.
I think once I hid like $100 in a book and I don't think I ever found it again.
No.
Devastating.
Someone at a used bookstore. It's a lucky day.
Oh god, that would be wonderful. Yeah, no, I don't even want to think about it anymore. Could use that $100 right now.
Oh please.
But so they did drink, and at some point Paul goes into the bedroom with Ramon, and shortly after that he begins beating the older man. For some reason, Thomas decides to call his fucking girlfriend while this is happening. Like,
Okay.
even if this is 1968, like, you must have watched enough movies by now to be like, hey, don't call anyone while you're committing a crime. Like, just don't.
Especially-
It's a bad
Especially
idea.
murder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Of all
like,
the
super
crimes.
bad idea. Well, that makes me think that maybe he didn't know, or there wasn't the intention to murder him. But still, like, don't, even if you're just trying to rob someone and beat them up, like, don't.
Just
Maybe be smarter.
just don't do it in general, but
yeah.
that's neither here nor
I
there
mean,
at
if
this
we're
point,
gonna
is
go
it?
that far. So Thomas is on the phone to his girlfriend Brenda, and she later testifies that Tom said Ramon was going to get Paul into the movies, and that was why they had gone to the house in the first place. Not that there was supposed to be any sexual relationship. Both Paul and Tom were like quite good-looking men. Like, you look at photos, there's so many photos that pop up of them in relation to this case. They're both like very classic, good-looking white dudes from like the 60s. You know, they look like something out of Greece.
Nice.
Yeah. So while Tom chain smoked cigarettes and drank beer, he told Brenda he knew there was $5,000 somewhere in the house behind a picture. Brenda then said to Tom, "Don't get in any trouble," and the screams she heard in the background sounded a lot like they were getting into trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So Brenda on trial said that Thomas, said that Paul, was probably just going to scare him with something, or hit him maybe. As the phone call neared an end, Thomas said, "Well, I better go now because I'm going to see what's happening. I don't want Paul to hurt Ramon." Like, the screams sound like maybe he was already hurt.
Yeah, a bit late
But
for
okay.
that, mate.
Yeah, bit behind. During the trial, also, Paul's ex-wife, Mary, came forward. So we've heard from Tom's girlfriend. This is now Paul's ex-wife, or estranged wife. They weren't actually divorced at the time, but she left him. She identified Larry, the name that was written on the bed in ink, as her brother, Paul's brother-in-law, who Paul blamed for all the problems of their failed marriage. Basically, he'd done a really shit job of trying to frame Larry.
He's gonna frame his brother-in-law. Fuck.
Because he wanted to fuck his brother-in-law. That's why.
Oh.
What? Oh, maybe.
Oh.
I didn't consider this angle, but it's possible. It's possible, especially with something that we learn later. But, okay. Anyway, moving on. So Tom, fucking genius that he is, called Brenda again after the murder.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly. This is before he went to trial. They're no longer in the house. This is just like after that they have killed him. Well, you know about Navarro. He is dead. When I bent down over him, I saw he was dead. And if we have enough money, we'll fly back. Otherwise, we'll have to hitchhike back. Spoiler alert, they did not have enough money to fly back. In court, it was described how 69-year-old Ramon had been beaten unconscious, taken into the shower, and revived so he could be questioned further. He did not keep any money in the house. He only had $45 cash on him at the time. Every photo in the house had been ripped off the wall, so there was never any money hidden anywhere in the house. He wasn't stupid, so he didn't leave money lying around the house. And the court heard how the brothers allegedly intended to either blame one another or mental illness for the crime. So, a friend of Paul's, who also went to trial, and testified, said that the brothers had come to his apartment on the evening of the 31st, so the day after the killing, or the night after. And they said they were in trouble. Paul said, "Vic, I'd like to see you. We're in some trouble. Tom hit Ramon. Ramon is dead." Sorry, I can't say his name probably. Ramon is dead. The friend asked, "How could you do such a thing?" And Thomas replied, "I hit him several times very hard and he's dead." So the friend gave them $8 for a cab and sent them the fuck out of there because...
No. Harbouring
What else
fugitives?
do
You kidding?
You probably should... Yeah, exactly. But probably call the cops. Like, I don't think he did, but he did stand trial for it, so that's good. So Paul took to the stand and gave his version of the night of the murder, and he said he went into Ramon's bedroom and found him lying on the floor, and he was covered in blood, and his hands were tied behind him. So he touched him on the shoulder, and he felt starchy, tight, like paper.
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly.
Provocative.
So while Paul... Exactly. Well, something else that comes up later, which makes me laugh.
Wow.
Anyway, so from... where he sat at the defense table, Thomas apparently stared fucking daggers at Paul and was just real mad, shaking his head like he couldn't believe that his brother was doing this to him. Paul said he wanted to call the police, but Thomas stopped him and suggested they stage a robbery. I mean, that's what they were there for in the first place, so I don't know if it's really staged, but whatever. Paul's attorney basically asserted that his client had no reason to kill Ramon because he thought the actor was a nice guy and that Ramon said he would make him a superstar. Paul said that Navarro thought I could be a young Burt Lancaster or another Clint Eastwood. So during the trial, neither of them would admit to it. They both blamed each other. Like, Thomas was like, "It was Paul, I didn't do it." Thomas, being 17, was young enough that he may have been pressured by Paul and his mum to take the blame, and eventually he did sort of give it like a half-hearted try where he was like, "Oh yeah, I guess I did it. It was me." Because he couldn't be sentenced to death, and that's basically the only reason. So instead of like either of them getting the death penalty, they both received life sentences for first-degree murder, which should have meant that they served life. They did not. They got out less than 7 years later, both of them. Paul did really well in prison. He picked up creative writing, and he won an award for a short story called Dream No Dreams.
Ugh.
Which, yeah, I think you can actually buy his short story collection on Amazon. I think I found it as an e-reader. And a paperback. I know, but I also don't want him to get any money. Because, yeah, it seems really likely that even if he didn't do it, he fucking went along with it. And it's all kind of fucked up.
Because there's a law that was passed with Son of Sam that prisoners can't earn royalties from published books. I don't know if it's about their crimes or if it's just any published book, but that's
only in certain states.
Oh.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's here because everybody wanted Chappelle Corby to write a thing.
A tell-all.
Yeah. And they were like, no, she can't profit off anything. And she was warned she wasn't allowed to go into any reality TV or anything like that because that would be profiting off her crime.
I mean, that's good. It's for the best. I mean, you look at, like, OJ's If I Did It. He obviously wasn't convicted, but made money off of a murder, which is kind of shitty. So yeah, you can. It does. So unsurprisingly, the e-reader version that I found doesn't mention the murder in a very long, like, bibliography about the author. Thomas didn't do as well. Thomas is the younger brother who eventually said, like, oh, I guess I did it. He was constantly in and out of solitary confinement, and apparently he ended up with a pretty severe addiction to drugs. Both of them were later rearrested for other crimes, and they actually ended up serving longer prison terms for the other crimes, which were not murder, than they did for the murder of Ramon. Thomas was arrested for rape and then later for failing to register as a sex offender following his release for that rape, which I think was the longest stint he did in prison, which is really fucked up.
Oh my god. Fuck.
Yeah. Fucking awful. And even worse, during the trial, Ramon's sexual orientation was constantly called into question with, like, way more vigor than whether or not either of the defendants were guilty or innocent.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Yup. Tom's defense attorney, Richard Walton, placed the blame for the murder on Ramon. He said, quote, "Back in the days of Valentino, this man who set female hearts aflutter, who was nothing but a queer, there's no way of calculating how many felonies this man committed over the years for all his piety." So basically he's referring to the anti-sodomy laws at the time, which is fucking awful. I just think that's just terrible. So neither brother spoke to each other or saw each other again after their prison sentences finished, supposedly. This was basically, like, exactly a year before the Sharon Tate, James Sebring, Abigail Folger, and Wojtek Frywowski and Stephen Parent murder.
Oh my
God. The Manson murders. So this kind of got overshadowed, like, when a year later this huge thing happened. And also on top of that, the fact that he was a closeted homosexual man who was unfortunately uncloseted after his death meant that a lot of people, like, were awful about it.
Oh, God.
Then, in a 1998 interview, Paul Ferguson, the older brother, finally assumed blame for Novarro's death. So he apparently didn't know anything about the money that was supposedly hidden in the house. That was just all shit, and they trashed the house as a ruse. Apparently, Paul blamed internal homophobia for the rage that led him to pummel Ramon into his death. He said, quote, "When he kissed me, I reacted like a Catholic, what they call homosexual panic. Some old guy in the desert says, kill homosexuals, it's inbred. I was too drunk to be civilized. Whatever my most primitive moral standings were, I reacted. It had nothing to do with Novarro, nothing to do with his being homosexual. It all had to do with how I saw myself, and the fact that my brother was there, and that he could see me in a homosexual act. It all had to do with my Catholic upbringing, with my 5,000 years of Moses, and that's the only reason why this whole thing happened, because that's what society teaches you. I think after I hit Mr. Novarro, I turned around and sat down on the sofa. I got up and went to find Novarro in the bedroom. This guy's dead. We didn't go there to rob him." So.
What?
Fucking awful.
What?
Yeah, exactly. But then, in 2005, Tom Ferguson committed suicide by slitting his own throat in a Motel 6, and he left no suicide note. So it all went terrible. It's a fucking miserable story. Ramon struggled with his faith and sexuality all of his life. I can't imagine how hard it must have been to be a gay man in that time, especially when you're so in the spotlight. Like, you wouldn't be able to have a normal relationship. You'd never be sure of how someone felt about you. You'd constantly be in terror, being found out. At the time of his death, huge numbers of bottles, apparently like dozens of empty liquor bottles, were found in the trash, suggesting that he drank heavily right till the end of his days. He is buried in Cavalry Cemetery in East Los Angeles, California, and his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame is the 6,350th on Hollywood Boulevard, or it is number 6,350 on Hollywood Boulevard, excuse me, that's where it's located. Yeah, that's my story. My sources are Wikipedia, Bizarre Murder Weapons Ever List 25, backtostonewall.com, which is like a history of Halloween gay history, which is really interesting. Deranged Crabs LA, Murderpedia, and also we should definitely do this topic again because I found 2 other crimes where a guy was murdered by his girlfriend's breasts and another one with someone and a prosthetic leg.
Excellent. Lock it in.
So good.
But yeah, that was Ramon Novarro. I would highly recommend that you watch one of his films. They're really
Excellent. Well done.
Thank you so much.
Yay.
good. No worries.
What a
Lacey.
saga.
What
Oh
a
my God.
like.
Yes, Lacey.
I know.
Okay. So I picked out. So when I looked at all the murders, I was like, oh, there are a lot of people killed by a lot of weird shit. But I was more into like the mass murder of people with weird shit killed by things. So
Oh.
I went the military route because war is murder, just organized murder.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Commodified murder.
Commodified murder. But if you serve in our defense forces, fuck yeah, you're amazing. Well done. But luckily, none of these things are going to be used against you because the Hague Convention would just be like, no, none of those. None of these. Okay?
Pack it up, boys.
Pack it up, boys.
Geneva Convention is like, no, this is
not okay. Drones are the way. Like, that's what we're doing. Okay, cool. So the first one we're starting with is Greek fire. Woo!
What the fuck is Greek
I'm about to tell y'all. All right. So
Good.
incendiary and flaming weapons have been quite popular, used in warfare for centuries. We liked them. We like the boom. But none as mysterious or as fabled as the weapon Greek fire. Greek fire was the secret weapon of the Byzantine Empire's navy. It was liquid that was poured into a pressurized tube and fired at the enemy ship. It was a flamethrower. Like, if I look
Oh my God.
I looked at a lot of tapestries and a lot of things. It looks like a flamethrower, and they even mounted it on the shoulder, as you like boom time.
Fuck.
That's so metal.
I know, so metal.
It sounds like what they based the Battle of the Blackwater in Game of Thrones.
I'm gonna
on.
get to that.
Oh.
Oh, yay!
Yes. Keep going, please.
I do have. Hang on a sec. I got pictures for you. By the way, I meant to put up pictures of my shit dad John list on Instagram, and I totally forgot. But I will.
I know we do this.
I
a
will
lot,
rectify
really.
that.
Send them my way. That's my bad. More than anything, that's my job, and I'm bad at it.
No.
I don't apologize.
It's fine. It's good. It's good. I've just sent you a little picture of it on the chat if you guys want to have a look. So the liquid would light itself on fire and burn everything it touched. And the reason it was used by the Navy, because it burned on the water like petrol and could not be put out by any traditional means. So with its sort of destructive power and its nature, the modern weapon that's commonly compared with is napalm. And we're using this we're using this in 600 AD. Okay?
Oh
In George R.R.
terrifying.
Martin's fantasy series of novels, Game of Thrones, Wildfire
Finish the last one.
Wildfire is similar to Greek fire, and it was used in naval.
Where is Winds of Winter, George? Sorry.
Very passionate about it.
Very passionate.
I really need it, okay? I've been waiting for a long time.
So, wildfire, like Greek fire, was used in naval battles as it could remain lit on water, and the recipe was closely guarded. So it's the same shit. He's used stuff from history again. So, with this kind of weapon, a lot of stories about it sort of fall into the supernatural categories, and it's become like this whole thing. But here's what we know for certain. It burned on water, and in some interpretations, it was ignited by water.
Oh.
Yep. The only things that could be extinguish it, were sand, strong vinegar. So if you had mild vinegar, you were fucked. Old urine. So if you had new piss, you were fucked. And so it had some sort of chemical reaction with it, and it like dampened it down. It was a liquid substance. It wasn't projectile, and it was also called liquid fire. It was used primarily at sea because warships were, the tanks of the day. And when you have a look at the Byzantine Empire around this period, it owned all of everything that the Mediterranean Sea touched, everything that the Black Sea touched. Then you were fucked. But it was when they got on land that they didn't really get very far. But they owned all of the sea. All of the sea. All right? All of the sea.
Excited.
Big
All of
monopoly
the
on that.
sea.
All of the sea. It was used in siege warfare on land. You could put it into earthenware pots and sort of grenade style throw it.
Oh.
You could also put them and like dip caltrops in it and throw them over. A caltrop is if a swastika and a throwing star had a baby, it was a caltrop. And they would spin and cause fire and fuck up all your horses. Not great. Anyway, other thing that it was wildly known for is that the sound of it sounded like thunder, and there was much smoke when it ignited. It roared, much akin to the breath of a dragon.
Oh, that's so cool.
So fucking cool.
That's so fucking cool.
Now, we don't know what Greek fire was.
Oh, damn it!
There's a lot of
I'm sure.
there's a lot of debate and speculation. Quicklime, calcium phosphide, sulfur, pine resin, that kind of thing. We don't know because and if you captured somebody who made the Greek fire for the Byzantine Empire, it wouldn't get you very far because they each person only knew one part of the recipe. Nobody knew the whole recipe.
Oh, genius.
So it's lost to history. No modern scientists have been able to completely duplicate the recipe.
Fuck.
And so it's sort of been this cool mystery thing, and we don't know why. But also we can't use it because the Hague Convention is like, no.
Don't
Don't do that.
Don't do that. But while I was, dabbling in the depths of the internet, I did find that there was an Armenian man in the 19th century by the name, I can only say Cavafian. That sounds Armenian.
You ask us like we're gonna know how to say it.
So
2 thumbs up from me.
he approached
Good job.
He approached the Ottoman Empire, saying that he had perfected the recipe for Greek fire. But and he was going to give it to them under the deal that he was going to be placed in command of its use during naval engagements. Not long after this, he was poisoned by the imperial authorities, and they never found out his secret.
Oh.
Huh.
Okay.
And all of his stuff was destroyed. So whether it was the Ottoman Empire saying, hey, we want to be military dudes and you can't be a military dude, you can be like a weak scientist on the side or whatever, or another country heard about this and was like, no, the Ottoman Empire cannot have Greek fire and kill this dude. So we don't know. But he was murdered for it. So that was Greek fire. Next, we
Amazing.
move on to
Yes.
the nest of bees. The bees.
What the fuck? They have such cool names.
I know.
Nicolas Cage is screaming. I can hear him. He's wailing. Not the bees, not the bees. Tell us, please.
The bees.
Thank you, Lacey.
The bees.
About the
Okay.
bees.
So, ladies, what are some words that should not be used to describe a rocket launcher?
Insertable.
A good time.
What was that?
Insertable.
Yeah, you don't want that to be inserted into anything.
No.
A
Inaccurate.
good time. Inaccurate.
Inaccurate. Wooden.
Crooked.
Handheld.
Oh.
Sometimes would catch a light for no reason.
Oh.
Yeah, no.
These are all true
Really
descriptions
wouldn't
of
want
the nest of bees, the weapon of choice for China's Ming Dynasty, who reigned for 1368 to 1644.
Holy shit.
Long time for someone using a wooden fucking rocket launcher.
Yeah, but China's been making gunpowder since 1900 AD. So, yeah.
Yes.
Nest of bees. So a large wooden tube, I put it up on the chat, filled with 32 arrows with black powder. Why 32? I don't know. I think that's how many they could fit in the tube. Just couldn't find out why 32. So,
It's just what we could get in there.
yeah, when it fired, it would spray the battlefield with arrows and they would scatter everywhere. Not very accurate, but that wasn't the problem, because if every single archer in your row fired 32 arrows at once, you know,
Some of them have to go
some of them
somewhere.
have to go somewhere. Big problem. So,
We'll fight in the shade.
do you remember in... do you remember in Mulan, in the animated version, when the Huns fire their arrows through the smoke
Yes.
on the mountain?
Yeah.
And it was fully terrifying. So imagine
Yeah.
if all of those archers, instead of firing one arrow, were firing 32.
Yeah, not
great.
Holy
Don't like
shit.
it.
So I have a great quote. A terrifying quote.
Our favorite kind of quote.
When fired, like, if the whole army fired, there was as much space between arrows as there was between drops of rain.
Whoa!
Oh, that's so
That's cool.
meta.
So metal.
That's brutal. You would all be dead.
So there are there's other variations. There is a Korean variation called the Hachwa. Terrible. My Korean is bad. I'm sorry. They tested it on Mythbusters. And there's a great episode watching it. It's not accurate, but if you had like a whole like row of them, because they were mounted on wagons and had all these arrows in them.
Okay.
And they used to have like carry like 100.
Oh shit.
The Chinese did produce a wagon mounted version, and they had full sized rockets with dragon heads. And the rockets are like little feet. I put it in the chat. They also still called it the nest of bees, but I think they should have been called the dragon wagon.
That's so
They
good.
missed out.
They're really cute.
Yeah, they missed out.
Excellent, actually.
Oh, they are the little feet.
WeirdsSistersPodcast.com for all of these images. Thank you. Listeners at home.
Okay, next is the Yurumi. Have we heard of this?
Oh.
No. Nobody has.
I wanna hear.
I found it on the internet and I was like, oh. So the Yurumi is a type of weapon from India. I'm pronouncing it wrong and I apologize. This weapon consists of an extremely flexible metal blade that's wielded like a whip.
Yes.
Oh, don't like
Soul
that.
Calibur. Yes.
So it's probably one of the most bizarre weapons the world has ever seen, and it is actually the world's most dangerous sword because it's dangerous to wield as well as, cut, other people.
That was the first thing I think of, because as soon as I say you put something like an iPhone cable in my hand, I have to whip it around a little bit because I'm dumb. It's like when you get the tongs out and you have to clack them.
Yeah. Gotta clap them
And I
twice
always
until they
get
work.
myself in the face. Exactly. What if they don't work? But yeah, I always hit myself in the face because I'm really fucking stupid. That's the first thing that would happen to me. I'd behead myself.
Oh.
Yes.
Fuck.
So this weapon was incredibly difficult to master as it has to be wielded continually, kind of like a gymnast ribbon, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's how it
Oh.
moves. That is so thin. So it's not used in combat these days. But it lives on in 2 forms of Indian martial arts, and it's only like used by the practitioners that train at the highest levels, like the top super levels. It also lives on in Magic the Gathering and Age of Empires 3.
Yes.
So you know the weapon is good when it's used in video games.
Exactly. You know it's really cool and probably not going to work the way that we want it to.
So there's YouTube videos of practitioners learning how to wield the Yurumi. Some of them train with like fabric before they get to the sword.
Yeah.
It is,
That
and when
sounds
they do
smart.
use the sword, it's very anxiety ridden for the watcher. Okay, so let's describe it. It consists of a long strip of metal attached to a handle with a really fucking tiny thumb and knuckle guard. Not like the good cutlass vibes that the pirates use in like Black Sails or whatever. The blade is normally between 1.2 to 1.7 meters in feet for my parents. 3.94 feet to 5.58 feet, and some of them have much greater lengths than this. Some of the blades can be like 3 to 5 meters.
Holy shit.
Wow.
9.84 to
That's
16
scary.
feet. There we go. Now, the width of the blade is 2.5 centimeters, 0.98 inches thick. And you can actually have multiple blades attached to one handle like a cat of nine tails. Kind of
Oh,
vibe.
double Dutch.
That sounds
There is a
I like it.
horrifying Sri Lankan version that has up to 32 blades in one handle and is typically dual wielded with one in each hand.
Oh my god.
I love
This is
it.
so cool. It's my favorite one.
That's so brutal. I really want to put it in the story that I'm writing at the moment. I love it.
Done. Write it down.
Picture in the chat.
Yeah, writing it down.
So,
Yes.
no, this isn't the terrifying Sri Lankan one. That was too much for me. This is just like a nice normal one. With, 6 blades in each one, whatever. So,
Oh my god.
I know.
Power stance though.
So fucking
Power
yeah,
stance.
right? I can't get that low.
No, that's some Cardi B shit right there. So, why? Why, for the love of God, would you design a sword like this? It was very portable. It could be rolled up when it wasn't in use. It could easily carried concealed, and it can be used as a belt that could potentially cut you in half if you move wrong. I don't know.
I was gonna fucking say it. That's terrifying.
Oh.
So, and due to the, continuous nature of how it has to be wielded, it kind of creates a defensive bubble around its user, and it is really, really suitable for defending against multiple opponents because you can go from all angles. And it can also curve around shields during combat. So it can be used to cut off fucking hands or whatever they need to do. So a lot of armor wouldn't work against this thing because it goes everywhere. It can get in those really hard to reach places between your torso and the neck if you have like a big armored tunic on or something like that. Yeah, so fucked. Really, really great to watch on YouTube. Highly recommend if anybody needs
So
to.
what this thing reminds me
Can
of.
you spell it for us?
Yeah.
It is Urumi.
Urumi. Cool.
So what it reminds
Yes,
me
going
of
to watch
is
videos.
playing with my granddad's tape measure when I was like the steel ones when I was like really young, and just slicing the webbing of my fingers by retracting it and retracting it, locking it, and then swinging it around so it goes it like makes the washboard sound. But it's like a metal tape measure, so it's really sharp. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna play with this.
Oh yeah, the slap band of
my
death.
fingers.
I fully
Yeah.
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 That's what it's like. It's like that, but more flexible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Horrifying. How did they make it so flexible?
Yeah.
It must be the heating process of the steel,
Yeah.
right?
How it's like forged, right?
I imagined when you first started talking about it as though it was a long strip of material with like little blades attached to it or something.
No.
But that's fucking terrifying that it's just a long blade that's really fucking flexible.
Yeah.
It's one piece.
It's one piece, one complete piece.
That is fucking wild. I love it.
Now,
That's my favorite one.
Yeah, okay, I can see the YouTube videos. I'm watching a lot of that later because I'm a big nerd who watches a lot of really dumb fucking
Combat videos.
battle videos and
with,
shit.
medieval
Combat videos.
Weapons. So good. So good.
It's because that's all I've been writing lately, so I've been like, I want to know how to use a glaive properly.
all right, we are wrapping today up.
Yes.
With one more.
Yes.
Okay,
Please.
so in 1346, during the siege of Kaffa, which is now Feodosia in Crimea, the attacking
The name of my D&D character.
yeah.
His name's Kappa. Yeah.
The attacking Mongols were losing. The ranks had been devastated by a strange disease that had followed them from East Asia. Now, the Golden Horde, which was the Mongols' army, is, to this day, the most mobile army history has ever seen. I can't believe how far they got into Europe. And, yeah, so fucking crazy. Anyway. In a last-ditch effort to gain the upper hand, they decided to use the bodies of the Mongol warriors who had died of the plague. So the plague-ridden corpses were loaded into catapults and flung over the city walls.
Yes. So that's why I named my
Early
character
biological
Kappa.
warfare.
Because he's a plague bird. My D&D character is a plague bird, and he's trying to like become a necromancer, and I named him that because of this. And I know this is so good. I'm so happy. Please tell us more.
So it was in the hope that the stench of the rotting corpses would drive them out, and also it's like huge psychological warfare. You know, like dead bodies. Like this is what you're going to be. You know, coming down. You know, while you're trying to get, like, your spices or whatever at the market. Anyway. Instead, what the Mongols had in fact achieved was one of the earliest known counts of biological warfare. The city soon became rife with the plague, and the defending forces retreated to their ships that sailed to ports all over Europe. Now, it has been speculated that this single siege may have been responsible for the initiation of the Black Death in Europe, that would ultimately take the lives of 60% of Europe. And you can see how it travels. So in Kaffa and Crimea, like in the Black Sea, the ships go through Constantinople, which is Istanbul. It goes to Dubrovnik, Venice. It goes to the bottom of Spain. It goes into Egypt. It goes into... And then those ships from there go inland. So you've got Germany. You've got... And then they go around, and then you've got London. Londinium. Fucked. This is where it started. And so we can't use the Hague Convention, which is a convention that was agreed for by all parties in the world, to make sure that war was fair. We can't use biological weapons. We can't use napalm anymore, so Greek fire is not going to get you anywhere. What else? Nest of Bees. We now have rocket launchers and that kind of stuff. We've modernized it. It probably wouldn't come down like rain, but you would be really dead very, very quickly.
No one wants to fuck with the whippy swords anymore.
Nobody wants to fuck with the whippy swords anymore.
Bail on those.
Fun facts with Lacey. When I was researching this, things in the Hague Convention that cannot be used against soldiers are things like capsicum spray and tear gas, but they can be used on protesters. But they can't be used in war.
Of course.
But they can be used on the streets. Yeah,
That's
very, very fucked up.
On civilians.
When there's like a bomb that goes like it's a smoke bomb. It's purely to disorientate. It's not bleeding from the eyes. That kind of vibe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. War was really fucked, and let's be glad that they don't exist anymore. All right. Sources. imperialwarmuseum.co.uk, War History Online, Goliath.com, AncientOrigins.net, allthat'sinteresting.com, weburbanist.com, and War Museum China.
Hell fucking yeah.
That was fantastic.
That was so good, dude.
It was really fun. Thank you. Oh, I liked that
What
a lot.
Solid episode. Yeah. Here's a question.
Yeah.
Such interesting things.
If you were to be murdered,
Okay.
with an unconventional weapon.
Ooh.
How would you want to go? Because I also thought about this during my...
I'd want it to be something that was, like, notorious. Because I know that my efforts are not going to get me made famous, but someone else's might, and it may as well be my death. So it should be something, you know, just wild, something upsetting. I wouldn't mind being murdered with an animal.
I was going to say an animal.
Murdered with an
But
animal.
I didn't know what one. I just thought of the thing with the pigs from... Is it from that Thomas Harris?
Yes.
Is it from...
Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels? Or is it...
It is Rock and Roller. Lock, Stock doesn't have pigs. Yeah.
Is it Rock and Roll?
Yeah. Just be fed to some pigs.
But I was also thinking of, like, you know, gladiator-style battles where people are forced into a place with an animal. I was like, yep, okay, because I would definitely die. I couldn't even...
Why would you want that to happen to you, even in an imaginary setting? What's wrong with you?
Well, because if I'm gonna go... JD and I had this thing a couple of years ago where I really, really want to go to South America, and I'd really love to travel, like, all through, like, the Amazon and things like that. And he was like, but what if, like, you come across a wild jaguar or something? I was like, I would be okay with dying that way. He's like, what? And I was like, yeah, I mean, like, that's metal. That's really cool. And also, I make sure I put in my little will, do not hunt down that animal, please, that murdered me. They would anyway, because that's what they do with man-eaters. But, yeah, I just think that that's a dope way to go.
It's not bad,
I don't know. You've got to die somehow.
See, I do like... See, if I was going to die in an unusual way or be executed in an unusual way, I want it to be for a really fucking good cause.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind being burnt for witchcraft.
I knew that was going to be your answer.
Of course.
Excellent.
You would.
Poisoning myself with a snake, like Cleopatra style. Like, it has to be dramatic
Cleopatra.
if I'm going to go that way.
You would be the most dramatic death that I would ever, like, personally know someone going through. If I had to pick someone out, I'd be like Lacey. Lacey will have, like, the asp. She'll have her body painted in gold and lead or some shit. She'll drink some mercury. Anything that'll make it intense.
So much laudanum. I know that if I was, like, a Victorian housewife, or, like, you know, not in, like, the
strong breeze took her.
Oh, yeah. I want that.
Cold hands.
I want to die on a couch, and for that couch to be put in a museum. That's what happened to one of the Bronte sisters.
I really do like the scene in From Hell.
Oh, Death Couch.
Didn't know that.
Death Lounge.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking about the scene in From Hell where Johnny Depp's character, who is very nice, basically, like, it's implied that he smokes himself into an opium stupor and dies at the very end because he can't catch Jack the Ripper.
I could do opium.
That'd be fun.
Opium den death, I guess. And then, you know, the people who work there will have to, like, put your body somewhere else.
Shift your corpse.
Because we can't have you, like, rotting up our opium den. Yeah, no, I'm fine with that.
Well, it happened in a nightclub in Melbourne
Revolver.
not that long ago, so, you know.
Oh, good old Revs. Revs till the sun
in
comes
case,
up.
in case we don't have, in case we have members who are not from Melbourne, there's a nightclub here that's notoriously awful, where someone died on one of the couches and wasn't discovered for, I think it was 24 hours? Or
it was a 3-day weekend because they closed Monday for cleaning. And they couldn't get her up to leave.
That's right, and they didn't close at all the rest of the time. Yep.
Yeah, it was just a drug OD.
Nice.
It wasn't like, you know, murder or anything like that. Or maybe, but we don't know.
Oh, was it?
Foul play.
I've never been, like, clubbing at a straight club in Melbourne. I've only been at, like, gay clubs.
It's awful. Don't do it.
Yeah, it's not
like,
good.
what do? You just, like, play pool or something?
No, you just...
No, you get felt up by some dude who's, like, real not nice or attractive or good smelling. Then you go to the bathroom and someone's usually vomiting.
Beers.
Maybe you get someone your shoe. Your shoes stick to the carpet. And you pay a lot of money for drinks.
Give me fruity drinks and glitter and drag queens, and that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You have to spend the whole night with your hand over your drink as well, which isn't fun.
Oh, that's what that's why you get those things. There's a product for that.
There's a product for that.
There's a product for that.
Everything, isn't there?
And it's like just...
Oh, that turns your drink a colour.
Oh, no, it's like a stretchy thing. You put it over and you pop your straw in.
Oh.
And so it stops it spilling on you and it stops anyone chucking stuff in.
Oh. Well, that's why I like alcoholic bubble cups.
Oh.
Because they have the seal
with the
top
big
on
straw.
them, but it's, single-use plastics. Like glue. So, glue?
Haloo?
Haloo? What? I don't know what that word is anymore.
Necessities.
What's the word I'm trying to use?
No idea.
I don't know.
None.
Galore! That's the word. It's single-use plastics galore.
Baloo.
What the fuck? Baloo. I don't know what's going on. Please someone send me home.
We are home. We're always home. We're never going to get... I don't want to leave anymore. I'm done.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I've accepted my fate. Thanks for the stories,
thank
guys.
you.
Cool.
Very good round.
Really
Yeah.
liked them. We shall next see each other in 2 weeks to do this all again. Until then, do we have any final messages?
In the meantime, if you'd like some more Weird Sisters content, weirdsisтерspodcast.com for all our socials, all the good stuff. Come talk to us on Facebook. Like us shit on Instagram. Give us a cheeky review on iTunes. We need the validation. We love you. Episodes available on YouTube. And we love you all very much. Big smooches. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Goodbye,
Bye.
team. Bye. Cease recording.